Today I am making the boombox bag. So this bag here is just an AIRLINER cabin bag, and I'm using the Groovy boombox embroidery add-on. So this bag can be done just completely plain. I've got my logo on the back here. So it still looks fantastic and nice and retro just as a plain bag, or you can go ahead and make your own boombox bag with the embroidery add-on. I always put my logo somewhere on the bag, and then you can decorate each of the panels. I'm going to put one panel that says retro feels, and then I've done this one with my little speakers and my top piece. And you can see that this one was done to look more like CDs. And this one over here is red, but it's just going to be red. So you can decorate them as much or as little as you want, and they'll all look fabulous and individual and amazing. So if you'd like to see how I made this bag, stay tuned. Hi there. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with each of the panels. So we have got a bottom panel and a top panel. We've got the vinyl accent for the middle, and then the back is again a bottom panel, a top panel, and a vinyl accent panel. Okay, so we're going to start with either the front or the back, it doesn't matter which, but you need one top, one bottom, one top, one bottom, and one accent piece. So we're going to put the bottom and the accent piece together, and I'm going to sew this at 1/2 inch, and I'm using a joining stitch, which is a medium stitch length. On this machine it is about a 3. All right, straight across. The camera's going to be in the way. Back stitch. Then I'm going to flip this open, and I'm going to top stitch. Let's see. I'm going to fold, so from the bottom, I'm going to fold that under like that. So the accent is at the back, and then using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to stitch all the way across in a larger stitch length because it looks nicer. And back stitch. Then I'm going to take my top piece and I'm going to lay that down, and again with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I should cut off all these little threads because otherwise they get in the way. They get caught up. Okay. So 1/2 inch joining stitch length, a couple of back stitches, and away we go. Trim that off. Don't cut your fingers like I just did. Open it up. And a larger stitch length. And that's it. Now we're done. So now we end up with our panel. Isn't that cute? All right, now we're going to do the other side. So again, we take a bottom or a top. Starting with the bottom, I've got my accent panel on top. Now you can clip these together if you're a beginner. I'm just not because I'm lazy. So remember, we want a joining stitch length, a couple of tacks, and all the way across. Back stitch, cut my threads. Remember to push my seam allowance towards the side of our panel. I just got my thread caught. Let me fix that. And now we're putting our top panel on and going back to a joining stitch length. 1/2 inch seam allowance, line our pieces up. Stitch. See how pretty that looks. Stitching looks amazing. Okay. Now we're going to put our foam on. Now the way I do this, I don't know how everybody else does this, but this is a fusible foam. I've just got my panel laying face down and the sticky side down, and I'm putting that centered, and then I'm just going to get my hot steamy iron, and that's it, going straight over the top. This iron is just a cheap iron I got from the grocery store. So it's nothing spectacular or special about it. It does take a while. You just go nice and slow, and it gets sticky, and sometimes it likes to curl. So just push it down with your hand, just don't burn yourself. And go back one more time. And then I just flip them over, give them a press with my hands, and I let them cool down because the glue is still hot. And now that that's turned over, see, now it's all sticky. So now we have our foam fused. So I'm going to do that to all the pieces, and then we'll be ready to put our binding on. Okay, now that we've got our panels and our foam on, we are going to add our decoration. So this being boombox, these little buttons here are radio buttons or play, stop, fast forward, whatever you want. These ones, they're like volume knobs, change the radio station. So all they are is, let's see here. So for the ones at the top, that's them. They're 15mm bag feet. Now I chose the dome ones. You can also use a round one if that's all you have, or a button or whatever. But I just thought this one sort of protrudes a little bit more and looks more like a little dial, so that's why I use them. The other little buttons are, they're just rivets, double capped rivets, and they're 4mm posts, see? And they're 9mm on the top. So we will be using some 9x9mm later to attach the handles, but for now we're just going to use the 4mm and the 15mm little domes for the knobs. Okay, so if you are going to be doing this, for this one, the red one, this is just going to be a plain bag, so I'm not going to put any decoration on that one, so I'll put that one aside. I printed out this, so I just made it up myself, and I made marks where the where the buttons have to go, and I've hole punched them, and I've made marks at the top. So now all I need to do is put this down on top, and I'm just going to match up where everything is. It looks like it's in the right spot, so I'm just making sure that it's centered, and as you can see I've got it sitting right on that line, so I know it's straight. And I'm going to take some chalk, and hopefully this works. I'm just going to put a dot in each of them. And on this side. Now when I take that off, I can see where they need to go. So I'm just going to make sure that that's okay, and they're all straight. Hi. Good girl. Hi. Now I'm getting my hole punch, and now I'm going to just hole punch in the center of each of those marks. Can be a bit tricky, but just squish away until you've got them in there. Make sure they are in line when you're doing them. Let's start at this end. Can't reach that one. Just. Okay. Alright, so those holes are in there now. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to get my press. I'm going to stick this through, and I'm going to put the cap on the back. Now the reason I did it after the foam is just because it gives it that padded look. Little squish. And we'll do that for each of them. Now we need to don't push too hard, it's more just a little, the machine does the work. This is a cam press. I'll put a link in the description of where you can buy one. Now, of course, if you don't have rivets and you don't have a press, that's okay. You can embroider some, you can use buttons, anything you want, sequins, let your imagination go crazy. Alright, so now we've got, see, that looks fabulous. Now we're going to put a little foot on. Let's make a little hole there. This is a part that can be a little tricky for me. In those. And they're nice and tight. Yep, they look good. I mean, I put a hole in it now, so there's not much I can do about it, is there? And that one's done too. So now, how fabulous does that look? And from the back. Alright, now we can move on to our next step, which is the binding. I'm going to make my piping using a piping foot. They come in all different sizes and you just bolt them onto the machine. I am using it's exactly the same, it's just different size. I'm using a 6mm cording foot and I'm using 4mm macrame cord. Why am I using a bigger foot? Just because by the time the vinyl and everything's in there, it just gives me a bit more space to work. Okay, so I've cut a piece of cord. I have cut a piece of vinyl, which is 1.5 inches wide, and I've cut it the full length of the fabric, so it's about 1.5 meters or whatever. But it's a pretty simple process. All we need to do is place the cord there in the middle, fold it in half, and then place that under the cording foot and stitch all the way down. Now I'm not going to back stitch at the start because I often need to access the end and I don't want to be cutting into the vinyl. So all I'm doing is, I might have to turn this a little bit that way. So, and I've just got a medium stitch length on there. All I do, let's go. So I'm just folding my vinyl over so it's in half. I think I'm running out of bobbin thread because my machine's a bit noisy there, but we'll see. We'll see if we make it all the way through. Just keep repositioning it. Don't worry if you get stuck. Oh no, I'm going to have to change my bobbin thread. Hang on. Okay, we're at the end. binding already, and we're going to start at the bottom. So we're going to find the bottom center, and then I am going to match up the edges like that, and I'm going to clip it all the way around. Now you can use as many or as little clips, but you want to make sure that it's not going to move. So now when you get to the corner, I'm just going to make a couple of little snips there. I'm going to make 4 snips to help that just sit around the corner. See? See how that fans out? I might even put one more just there. Alright. Now that just gives it a little bit more room to move. And then I'm going to put my clip back on. And then I'm going to go round to the next one. So now you can see when it's clipped in, it's sitting on the edge really nicely. So I'm just going to do that all the way around, and I'm going to do that for the front, and I'm going to do that for the back as well. Okay, now when we get to the end, you can do this a couple of ways. You can run this off like that, so you can just turn the 2 edges down and you get that kind of look, which is fine, but I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off, here's my other scissors. I'm going to leave about 1 inch overhang, maybe 2 just to be safe. And then when we get to the end, I'm going to open this one up. I'm going to cut out any additional cord that's in this side, and then I'm going to place that vinyl over the top in the center there, and then I'm just going to stitch it down. So this is where we are at the moment. So now I'm just going to attach the cording to the other panels, and then we'll put them on. Okay, so now I'm going to sew on or tack on my binding, and you can see that I've started just a bit further back here because I want to be able to tuck some of this bit underneath it later. So for now I'm just going to keep that out of the way. I think I was using the wrong words, and I think I did say that I was going to be using my cording foot, but I'm not. I'm using my regular foot, or this is a Teflon foot. So you can see there, just there, so there's still a bit of space between where the needle and the cording is actually going to be. That's fine, because when we put the 2 pieces together, we're going to use a zipper foot and we're going to butt them up against each other. So for now, we're just going to be using our regular foot, whichever one you normally use. Now, hopefully this camera doesn't get hit as I'm doing this, but let's have a look. All right, so I'm just going to be using a tack-on stitch, so it's quite a long stitch, and I'm just going to go nice and slow, and I'm going to follow it exactly around the edge. So now that tacks on really nicely, but we won't be seeing this seam that we're making because it's within the 1/4 seam allowance, and then we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance when we put the sides together. Also gives us a really nice curve. Sometimes it's a struggle to get around those corners. Now, when I get to here, I'm going to cut this piece here to match there, but I'm not going to cut the vinyl. So I'm just going to cut, so where that string ends, I'll cut that string off. And then I'm going to tuck this behind it, but we don't need that much. So using my scissors, I just want a little overlap. So I'll just cut a piece of that off there. So now, when I lay them down together, see what I've done there? So I've put that one down and I've opened it. I've laid this one complete with the string, and then I've pulled this one over the top. And you can see that it's going to give me a really nice, neat finish. Oops. We'll just keep going on that edge there till I get to the end, and then I'm going to back stitch. So you can see the finish that I've got there is really nice and neat. But we have stitched it. See, that's where the cording is. And then that is where we've stitched this time. So if I flip it over, we can still see that. But when we actually put our pieces together and we stitch right up against there with our zipper foot, that's the kind of finish that we'll get. Okay, so now we're just going to do the other side exactly the same way, and then I'll meet you back here. Now we're going to make the strap connectors, which look like this. And we're going to have one of those on each side of the bag, and then at the each end for the crossbody strap, and then we're going to have two on each side, which are the handles. So all we're going to do is I've cut mine 2 inches by 3 inches, and I've ruled a line down the center, which is the halfway point. I'm just going to put some double-sided tape down there, peel off the backing, and then I'm going to fold each edge into the side. And fold each edge into the middle like that. And then you end up with, that's the side that we folded in, and that's the flat side. And then we're going to top stitch all the way along. And turn it around, go back the other way. Now, because this is 2 strap connectors, I'm now going to fold that in half, and I'm going to cut it straight there. So now I've got my 2 strap connectors. So I take my hardware, and the side that had the fold in it is the side that we want to cover up. So we're going to put that face down there. And there we have our strap connector. And I'm going to go ahead and make all 6 of those. We're going to end up having 2 that look like that for the crossbody strap, and then we're going to have 2. Then we're going to have 4 that look like that, which will be for the handles, the little handles. Okay, our next step is to insert the zipper. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a lining, our zip, so both of those face up, and I'm going to clip those together. And then I'm going to place my outside face down and clip that on. Once I've got that all clipped together, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew all the way down the side. Back stitch. Trim my edges. Okay, now I'm going to open this up. I'm going to put the zip to one side, the lining and the outer to the other side, and I'm going to top stitch all the way down. Off the ends, and now we've got our top stitch done on both sides. Now we're going to take our second lining piece. We're going to take the piece that we've just completed and place that side up, clip that back into place. And then we're going to take the other outer piece and lay that face down, and again clip that into place. Okay, and once that's all together, we're going to, using our 1/4 stitch, 1/4 inch stitch, we're going to go all the way down again. 1/4 inch seam allowance, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, same thing again. Now we're going to open that up. I'm going to push the front and back together. Press it down with our hands, and then we're going to top stitch again. So now we've got our front and our back top stitched. Okay, now we're going to make sure our zipper pull is on. Don't forget to put your zipper pull on. And I'm going to take one of my crossbody straps and I'm going to place it just here at the end, right in the center of the zip. Right in the center. And then I'm going to tack or base stitch just across here, right on the edge, just to hold it in place. So make sure it's center. And go back and forward. So now we have, I have to take that clip off. And now we've got that sitting in place at the end. And do the same for the other end. Okay, so now I've got both ends on. Okay, now we're going to put this all together. So we've got our top gusset piece and we've got our bottom gusset piece. And we're just going to lay them face down on each other. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to take the two lining pieces and we're going to sew right up as close as we can to there. And then on the other side, the same thing. So we'll just pop that out of the way and using our 1/2 inch seam allowance, make sure you use all your 1/2 inch seam allowance. All the way as close as you can and back stitch. And flip it over on this side. And back stitch. And then as far up as you can. Okay, so now that part is stitched in, but we still have our lining free because we're going to take our lining and do the same thing in a minute. But I'm going to flip it around the other way and line up these two edges and do exactly the same thing at the other side. Use your 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you don't, it won't fit around your side piece later on. Make sure everything's lining up when you're doing it as well. If it takes a couple of minutes to fiddle about to get it right, do it. Right up to the edge. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with the lining. Let's cut off any of those threads. Okay, So let's take our lining piece. I'm going to pick up, see how that's not sewn? So I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to put those sides together, and then I'm going to sew as close to the middle as my machine will allow, using my 1/2 inch seam allowance. Turn it around and do the same thing at the other end. Okay, trim off the ends. So now we've got our lining. Now it is closed, it's stitched together, but it's not attached to the vinyl. See that? Good. Alright, now we've got that sewn together. But before we move on, we're going to check one crucial thing. This needs to measure 38 inches. So I'm just going to take my tape measure and clip it on near a seam, and I'm going to stretch it all the way around. And we are right on 38 inches. So we know that it is the right size for the top. So we have no issues. Okay, so now we can move on. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to top stitch the side here. Now to finish the gusset off, I'm going to top stitch along here. And it's going to be a little bit fiddly because we've got all this business inside. So all we're going to do is we're just going to get the lining and pull everything out of the way, because when that gets folded down, we're stitching here. So I just want to move all of that to make sure we catch as very little as possible of it. See, it will just get that little tiny bit there, which doesn't matter. Keep it all out of the way as best you can. I'm going to go this way. Back stitch. There we go. We've got our top stitch, and very minimal catch up in there. So we'll just cut off these little ends. So now you can see when we open it up, none of that is in trouble. See, it all still sits flat, but we have a nice top stitch. And then on this side, we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're just going to move it all out of the way. Remember to back stitch, hold everything straight. And we're done. That's good. Drop my scissors. So again, we haven't caught up any of that, and that's all still fine on the inside. Now we're going to move on to the lining. So I've got my lining panel, which has been interfaced, and I've got my zipper pocket cut out, which is 8 by 12, I think. Yeah, 8 inches by 12. And then I folded it in half, and I've marked just below the half line, I've marked out where my zipper is going to go. So I'm going to place that in the middle of my panel, and the line where I'm going to sew is approximately, I'm going to go 1.5, I'm going to go 1 inch from the top. So 1 inch from the top. So we just line that up. And then all I do is I'm just going to stitch around. Back stitch. And back stitch. Right, now you can see that I have my zipper placement line. So I'm just going to cut a line straight down the center. And I'm going to make a V shape at each end. So I'm going to cut down almost to the, and then just make a little V shape like that. Try not to cut through your stitches. Same on the other side. So now I have on each end a little V shape. So now I'm going to poke this through the hole. And pull it open. And you'll see that I have a nice little hole for my zip. So I'm just going to go and press that down. And now I'm going to place my zip underneath. Oh, got the wrong one. I'm going to place my zip underneath. Oh, I want to see if I have a red one. I have a red one. Let's do that. That'll match the outside. Okay, so I'm just going to center that. I'm going to pull the little zip head into the middle a little bit. Then once I'm happy with the placement, I'm just going to top stitch all the way around. And all the way down the other side. And our zip is in. So now our zip is in, we are going to close up the edges. So if you flip it over to the back, all we're going to do is sew down one side and sew down the other. We're going to leave the bottom of the pocket open because this will help us later on when we've got to close up the bottom of the bag. I'll just keep everything out of the way while we do it. I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitch. Same on the other side. There we have it. Our panel is complete. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my zipper pocket and I'm going to leave it open so I don't forget to open it later. Now we're going to move on to the construction. So before we put on our front and back, we're going to get our strap connectors and we're going to find the tops and the bottoms. I'm going to get our strap connectors and I'm going to pin them on 2 inches. So from here to here is 2 inches. And I'm going to put this side of the strap where the 2 inch line is. And then I am going to push it so the hardware is sitting up against like that. And I'm going to pin it in place, clip it in place. I'm going to use 2 clips to make sure it doesn't move. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. 2 inches. Use my clip. So now I have my hardware on. And now I'm just going to baste stitch the top of that so I can remove those clips. And then I'm going to do that for both sides. Now they're basted on. The other thing to take note of right now is if you don't have any decoration, remember this panel is smaller this way than this one. So this is the top, let's remember that. Because you don't want to go and attach your hardware and then find out that you've put it on the wrong end. That would make me cry. And I have done it before. We've all made mistakes. We've all had to pull things apart and use a seam ripper. Or even throw things in the bin. I've done that too. I just like to check up against the other one that they are in the same spot. And if they're not, I will adjust them. That's better. And we're out of bobbin. So now's a good time to change your bobbin because we're going to do the final run around on each of the sides. And we don't want to be stopping midway. Now we're going to move on to constructing the bag. So I've taken one of my lining pieces and I've folded it in half and I've marked the top and the bottom with some chalk. Then I also marked the top and bottom centers of the gusset. Then using those lines, I have clipped the lining into the lining all the way around. Now on the corners, we are going to have to fan those corners like we did with the binding earlier. Let's see. I'm going to put some little tiny snips in there. It just pushes it out into the corner. And clip that down. We'll do that on each corner. It helps the corner fit nicely. So you can see I've just clipped a little bit of the corner just so it sits around the edge. fold the vinyl out of the way. You can also open your zip at the top because that'll probably make it easier for you as well. And last one. This one. And push that into the corner and secure it with a clip. Now once I've got that done, I'm just going to lie that down with the lining, putting the lining on the bottom and lining straight down. And then I'm just going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to sew with my joining stitch all the way around. So back stitch, and when you get to the corners, just go nice and slow and keep it as close to that 1/2 inch seam allowance as you can. Move that back just a little bit. I don't think I clipped that one far enough because it's not going all the way up. That's better. If you have to give it another clip, that's fine too. Just push whatever you need to out of the way. And then when you get back to where you started, just back stitch. Trim off those ends. Alright, so now we have a lining that's in there and it's sitting beautiful. It's hard to see with the black, isn't it? But it is in there. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing again with the other side. The only difference being this time we're not going to stitch the bottom part of the long side of the rectangle. That's because we're going to need that open to turn the bag through later. So let's just get all our pieces lined up. Fold that vinyl out of the way. I always start with one in the middle on each side And then I go one each side of that, flip it around. One each side of that, on the other side. And then I just make my way around. So remember, you can fold that vinyl out of the way like that, because we just want to be working with the lining right now. And don't clip your corners just yet. Let's just get it in first. Alright, now once we've got it in, just make sure it's nice and straight and even everywhere. No wavy bits. And then I'm going to go to the corners and I'm just going to clip them. So now I can put it in and that'll fan out on the corner. You can never have too many clips on either, so put as many as you need on. Or if you want to wing it, you can put as few as you like. I'd rather that it didn't move, so I'm going to go for lots. Alright, now this is the top. So this part here is where I'm not going to sew. So I'm just going to take that off to remind myself that I don't want to sew that middle part. Now I'm going to start on this clip here and I'm going to finish around the corner on this one here. And we're going to do the same thing all over again. So I'm lying it down with the lining flat. Half an inch seam allowance. And back stitch. And away we go around the corner. Yeah, clips out of the way. I end up with a clip party happening. Alright, we're coming back around the last corner now. And we're going to stop just near that first clip and I'm going to back stitch and snip my ends. So now you'll see that the lining is in. Now the fun begins, because now we've got to put the other part in. So we're going to flip it around and we're going to fold that so it's that way, because we want to attach this part now. So once I've marked the top and bottoms, I'm going to start clipping all the way around. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to get it exactly right. Remember, I've got to clip my corners. And the only thing we're going to do different this time is I'm going to change out my foot, and I'm going to use a zipper foot so I can get nice and close to the piping. So push and pull and do whatever you've got to do to get it in place. And again, you can't use too many clips. I like to check as I'm going that it's lining up, especially where the sides are, where we did that top stitching. So wherever that is finishing on that side, I want to try and make sure that it's in line on the other side as well. Now, if you're new to bag making, all these steps can seem really overwhelming. Don't think ahead. Just concentrate on what it is, the step that you're doing now. That's the best thing. Just concentrate on each step. Don't worry about how we're going to get the bag in the other way. As long as you've left your pocket open here, you've left a gap in your lining here, and you've opened your top zipper somewhere here. As long as your top zipper is open, we're going to be fine. See? Alright, so don't stress about any of that. Now we're going to change our foot for a zipper foot. That's nice and done. And I'm going to start on the side, which is a nice chunky part. But remember, what we want to do is we want to push this foot in so it's actually up against the binding that we did earlier. Because the closer we get to the binding, the better the finish is going to be. So we're going to go forward. And we're just going to go nice and slow. It is a bit bulky here, so just nice and slow. Now when you get to this corner, I'm going to stretch that out, and we're just going to follow the corner. We're not going to try and force anything. We're just going to let it go where it needs to go, but we are going to keep an eye on, I like to put my hand in there and make sure that everything's pushed in, but not when I'm sewing. So you can see how I'm right up against that there. Now this side's not too hard. It's the next side that's a little bit more tricky, but again, we're only going to think about getting around the corner here, because that's what we're up to. Make sure it's all in the right position. Don't stress if you catch a little bit of foam there, it's bound to happen. Ooh, my arms get tired doing this. Maybe I sort of clench my teeth as well at the same time. Hold my breath. If you need to take a break, stop. That's fine. If your machine gets stuck anywhere and you need to start again, or you need to go back over a part, that's fine too. So all we need to do is make sure that it's consistent all the way around. Almost back where we started, and back stitch, and we're done on that side. Now I'm going to have a sneak peek inside, because I'm going to check that everything's in there, and if something's not right, I'm going to fix it now. It's looking good except for that corner. I can get closer, so I'm going to go back here. Yeah, I can actually get quite a bit closer there. Quite a bit. So, back stitch. I'm going to feel my way where it's going, and then I'm going to back stitch. And that's better. Now, the only other place I'm going to go over is where the little handles connectors, the strap connectors are. I'm just going to go over them again, and then back stitch and back stitch. I just want a bit of extra strength there. Now we can trim them off now. Now we're going to do the other side. So, same thing again. I'm just going to leave everything the way it is, and we're going to put that up. We're going to find our top. I do with it? No, it's on the floor. Now again, let's remember which is the top and which is the bottom. See all my marks that I've got there? I'm going to start by lining up the top. I'm going to put the bottom one on. Then I'm going to do one each side. Back to the other end. And now I'm going to see where we're at on this side. That's sitting in the right spot, which is a good sign. So again, we're going to leave the corners to last. Go back to this one. Again, that's sitting in the right spot. Now we're going to have a look at the corners. Now, if it is sitting a bit weird, you can just put one or two little tiny snips in there, and see, now it fans out to the corner beautifully. So I've got 3 tiny snips, tiny ones, because you don't want them so large that they're going to cut into the seam allowance. You don't want to be able to see them. You don't want to cut too far that you ruin all your work when we're on our very last step. So for any of you eagle-eyed people, you'll see that that is now sitting awesome. Now again, we don't need to leave any gaps like we did for the lining or anything like that. I'm just going to go all the way around. So now that we've got that all on there, we're going to sew all the way around with our zipper foot again. Camera back over there. We're going to flip this upside down so the lining is sitting flat on the bottom. And I'm going to start here near this strap. I'm going to have a little bit of a run up. Get that right in next to the binding. Now I'm just going to make sure that there's nothing in the way, because that would be a real disaster. Make sure that lining from before is out of the way. Yes, it can be a wrestle. That's okay. Okay. Back on the straight again. I'll clean up some of those clips. Again, I'm just going to pull everything out of the way. And anything I can push and squish, I will. Because the closer that needle gets to that binding, the better off we're going to be. Take a rest when you need a rest. It's the corners that's the killer. But what a cool finish this bag is going to have. Okay, now we're back up to the top. Which means we're almost at the end. Don't slack off now. And back stitch. Okay, now I'm going to just go over these bits again, just give it a little bit of extra strength where the strap connectors are. And this one. Those threads, and now I'm going to have a sneak peek okay, there's a hole in my lining, there it is. It all looks good. So now comes the fun part. Not. that's the lining pocket, and then there's the lining and the hole that we left. What we need to do is we need to reach in there, grab a corner of the bag and pull it through that hole. Now the foam and vinyl will pop back into place, so just get it through. For those of you that don't know, this is called birthing a bag, and you can see why. So it's a little bit at a time. Right, pop out all the corners. Now, finish the inside. I'm going to fold our lining down. Now what I'm going to do now, and this is why we left the bottom of this pocket open, is I'm going to reach in there and I'm going to grab the bottom of the lining of the bag and pull it through. Right. Now, then you'll see we've got that open seam there, which is the bottom. So all I'm going to do now is put a couple of clips on there, keep it straight. And then using my 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm going to stitch all the way across there. But first I'm going to change my foot back to my Teflon foot. This is my Teflon foot. It helps slide over the vinyl easier. So it's just a regular sewing foot, but it's a Teflon one. Now this can be a little bit tricky. That's okay. Just gonna go slow. Push and pull things out of the way. We've back stitched. And then when we get to the end, we're going to back stitch. Trim our edges, and then we're going to poke that back through there. So now you'll see that our lining is finished. And now all we have to do is close up our zipper pocket. And again, all we do is we reach inside there inside our pocket, and with my 2 fingers I'm just going to press in the corners like that, and then you can clip them, or if you feel unlucky, we can just go ahead and stitch it. But we're going to stitch this one really close to the edge. And I'm going to push that in, close up that zip. Now, this will need a press on the inside, but let's see. So now, it's looking amazing. So let's go do our straps. Okay, for the handle straps, I've got my pieces here, so I'm just going to take my double-sided tape and just put a strip straight down the middle, and then I'm going to fold these in to the center. Fold the sides into the center. Turn it around, and then I'm going to fold the other side into the center. Then I'm going to fold it in half again, and I'm going to put a clip on it just so it doesn't unravel. And then I'm going to do the same for the other one. So fold the edges into the center. Same on the other side. Then fold all of that in half again and clip. And then we're just going to stitch down both sides. Now I'm going to stitch the open side first. And I'm using a top stitch length and all the way down. And back stitch and cut our threads. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to go all the way down the other side. And then I'm going to do the same for this one. And then flip it over, go the other side. two pretty straps. Now, for the long one, I'm going to do this one in black because I haven't cut my red one yet, but similar but different. So we're going to put our tape down the center. And do the same thing to fold the centers in. Alright, now once that's done, you'll see we've got the side there with the join in the middle. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to get my accent piece and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch that over the top. Okay, so we've got our strap and we have our accent and we have our stitch length on a top stitch, a longer length, and we're going to go and away we go. Now you can use double-sided tape and stick it down first, but I like to just wing it. See what happens. Got to have some mystery in your life, huh? I just keep stopping and repositioning. Stop and reposition. I am stretching this top accent just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, because I don't want it to wrinkle or get bumps or warp. So with vinyl, it's probably the easiest way to go about it. It's quite a long strap. When I get to the end, I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to leave my needle down, stitch across, and then I'm going to go back the other way. Now, a good tip is if you have trouble going straight, look at your foot, not at your needle. So line something up with your foot and then keep an eye on that. If you're looking at the needle, it'll put your eye off. You'll see. Alright, first things first, we're going to take our tri-glide slide, our strap adjuster, and we're going to go up and then down, like that. And then we're going to fold that over about an inch, and then we're going to fold it over about an inch again. Fold it over and then fold it over, so we're sitting like that. Then I'm going to get the hole punch. This is a leather punch. And I'm going to take my rivets, which I'm using rivets that have a 9mm post. And I'm going to pop that through the hole we just made. I'm going to put a cap on. And squish it. Now, I'm going to take the other end and I'm going to slide one of these on. So now we've got this. I'm going to go up through there, down through there, and on this end I'm going to put that on and trim off those little bits. And then I'm going to double fold that again. So I'm going to go about an inch and then an inch. And then I'm going to hole punch that. And take my post and push it through. Must have lost my cup. Take a cap, put it on the end. Press it down. And then that is how we make our strap. Now it's adjustable. So there you go, that's how our strap looks. So I have already done one now in red for our bag, and our handles are the last thing we need to put on. So we're going to trim these ends. Now, very similar, we are going to take our bag, we're going to push the handle up, and then I'm going to fold it about an inch and then fold it an inch again. So it doesn't really matter how much you do it, as long as you do them all the same. So let's decide on that. Straighten it up. Now if you don't have a hole punch or a rivet press, you can just sew through that. That all the way through. Take a cap, put on my cap. And give it a press. So that one's on. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to be careful that we've got the strap going the right way. So try and get however much you've done this way, make sure you do the same that way. And then we're going to, now you might want to make longer straps. I'm a fan of short straps with a crossbody strap, but each to their own. Put a cap on. And there we have one handle. Isn't it adorable? Okay, so we trim the ends of this one. And this is where we're going to make sure we've got the same length, because we want our straps to be the same length on both sides. Cap on. And same again on the other side. Let's do a little test to make sure, yes, they're the same. Push our post through the cap. And it is done. We've got very cool. We've got our zipper pocket in there. We have two little handles and our crossbody strap.
Make sure you subscribe to my channel and like this page and hit the little bell so you'll be notified every time a new video is released.